Hey everybody, welcome back to Dot Life, Dorchester's only hyperlocal podcast with news, content, and analysis. I am remote today. I'm in Manhattan, but Bill is holding down the fort down in Dorchester. Hey Bill.
Hey, somebody's got to stick around and do some work around here. What are you doing in Manhattan?
I'm actually doing work, which is,
Oh,
the irony, but
you don't do this full time? This isn't like
I
all
don't do
you
this
do?
full time. Someday maybe.
You would
We'll
never
see.
know that. I'm lowercase Bill Forry back on Zoom here again. I don't know if you can see that on the broadcast. I guess you can't. But yeah, I'm happily back in Dorchester. It's a beautiful day while we're recording this. So we're going to try to keep this show nice and crisp so we can go back outside. You can hit the streets of Manhattan. I can
Yeah,
hit the streets of Dorchester, and we'll
we'll
get
all be
right
happy.
to it. Let's do it.
Before we get into topics, I think we do have to do our traditional football NFL recap. So, Bills, victorious. We're 2-0 over the Jets. This episode is going to run after tomorrow's Thursday night football game against the Dolphins. So, we could be
Dolphins.
3-0. I think there's a good chance we'll be 3-0, especially
Yeah, I
based
would.
on the Dolphins' performance against you guys last week.
Right. Well, the Dolphins are also going to be a little salty having lost to the Patriots last Sunday. We've got the Steelers. I believe it's a 1 o'clock game on Sunday, so
Okay.
people may not know the outcome of that just yet. But
Aaron
um,
Rodgers.
yeah, and he had a big win. They're 1-1. We're 1-1, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
a
I
real
have to
matchup.
say that Patriots Dolphins game was a nail biter, right down to I think overtime, right? Did it go into
Yeah.
overtime? Yeah.
No, it didn't go to overtime. We won it in regular clock, but yeah, it was right down to the wire. And yeah, I guess the Dolphins coach blamed himself for the loss.
I
And
think Dolphins coach is in this might be his last game. We'll see. He's in some hot water.
well, he's in hot water if he's playing your team. And how's
Yeah.
Josh Allen's nose doing? I heard that was an issue.
Nothing can slow that man down, so I think he's going to be okay, but it's a little bigger.
Well, good luck on Thursday night.
Thank you. And good luck to you guys on Sunday. I'm fine with you winning until you play us. So
Okay.
So
Thank
we've
you.
got that out of the way. What else are we going to cover this week? Let me give a quick rundown and we'll jump into it. So we do have to touch on Josh Kraft's announcement. I know we posted that on socials because it happened after we recorded last week, but the fact that he's left the race. We will also talk about some new police recruits who are hitting the streets in Dorchester and throughout Boston. We've got some White Stadium news and a little bit of development news. So where do you want to start, Bill? You want to talk about Josh Kraft?
Yeah, let's just talk about that quickly because our audience did not know. We did not know last time we recorded that Josh was going to drop out. We did speculate that he might and what he could do, and it turned out to be pretty close to what happened. That Josh Kraft decided to exit the race last Thursday. He formally withdrew his name last Friday from the ballot. So right now, Michelle Wu would be unopposed on the ballot for November 4th. There is a recount option with Domingos DeRosa, who is presently not on the November ballot, but could be if he gets up to 3,000 votes. He was well short of that on election night, so it's unlikely. But there will be a
Yeah.
recount in 10 wards to see if Domingos would make the ballot. I wouldn't count on it. And, just to button up on Josh Kraft, I think he did the right thing. Josh Kraft read the room, having been walloped by 49 points on September 9th. He also, I think, struck the right tone in saying, "Look, we don't need another 2 months of like sort of backbiting, mudslinging, especially at the moment in this political environment. It's not going to be productive for him in victory. There was just too big of a gap, and his money could be better spent, frankly." And whoever advised him on that, kudos. It's a good call. Mass and Cass, where he'll direct a good sum of his $3 million that he was going to pour into the general election, can be put to better use. I think it's the right move. It
I think
does
the
mean
kudos goes to you, Bill. I think you listened to the episode.
there's no way. I know for a fact it wasn't because of us,
The episode
but
didn't come out until after he made that decision, so we can't take credit. You can't take credit, but
but
you had the right idea.
the universe of folks were talking it into his existence, and he had the good, I think the good sense to pick up on that. So well done to him. Michelle Wu, we've already said everything I think needs to be said about her powerful victory, and now the question will turn to at large in particular. But that's fodder for another show.
Yeah. Do you think this is the end of the road for him politically, or you think he'll be back?
I don't think he'll be back politically. I don't.
Okay.
That's my gut reaction. I think he can contribute plenty, and plenty of folks do. And maybe someday he'll be thankful that he didn't win mayor of Boston in this moment. Who knows? But certainly he can contribute mightily in many many ways, and I'm sure he will.
Yeah. Yeah. Kudos to him. Good decision making. Time to move on for us and for him. Let's move on to the story that was on the front page of the Reporter this week, which is about new recruits in the police department and more. These are cops who will actually be walking the streets.
Yeah, there's 100 new officers who just graduated from the police academy in August, and they were assigned to their positions at districts all over the city last Monday, September 8th. So they're actively on patrol or in cars. Many of them are on walking patrols, according to the police captains that we talked to. So I want to step back and say there are actually four police districts that include parts of Dorchester, but there are two major ones, Area C11 and Area B3. Both of them are getting 19 or 20 new police officers each, according to the sources we talked to this week. That's good news, especially for B3. Area B3 includes most of the western side of Dorchester along the Blue Hill Avenue corridor, and includes Mattapan as well. And they're not having a good year so far, performance-wise, on crime stats. There's been an uptick in homicides from 3 last year to 6 so far this year. This is year-to-date numbers. There's been 50 additional aggravated assaults on the B3 district this year compared to last year. So they have an overall increase of right now about 15%, which is
Hmm.
the worst increase we've seen in the city of Boston this year. Overall, across the city, it's a 4% decrease in Part 1 crime or serious crime, which has been well reported. You know, Michelle Wu and others, rightfully so, can proclaim that Boston's one of the safest cities in
Yeah.
America, if not the safest big city. But there's been 25 homicides recorded so far this year, as opposed to 16 in that same time period last year. So that's not good. There's clearly been some property crime and theft going on. And a lot of it's because B3 and B2, which is another district centered in Roxbury, have seen increases on many of the categories. So reinforcements are needed. They've just arrived. They're not enough. There's more. There's more police ranks that need to be filled. There's been a nationwide attrition in police departments. There's been a lot of retirements. There's been a lot of early exits by police officers. It's a tough profession, and it's a tough
Hmm.
profession to recruit to. So this is a welcome infusion. We also reported this week that there's another class that's going to come on later for next year that's going to be recruited over the latter part of this year. And there's actually another class that's in the academy right now. It's a smaller class. It's not 100. It's something less than that will graduate later this year. So there is help on the way, and it's needed. So I do want to mention on the C11 police district, which is Eastern Dorchester, essentially, east of Washington Street up to Columbia Road. So coastal Dorchester, in part, has had a good year so far. There is a significant decrease. We went from 7 homicides last year at this time to 2 so far this year. That's good direction. There's been fewer aggravated assaults and an overall decrease in crime. Captain Steve Sweeney, who's the commander there, talked to us this week about how he's going to deploy additional resources and try to get, targeted enforcement done in stores and try to, tackle some quality of life issues. Now, things are not perfect on the C11 district. Just in the last month, we've reported on 2 alleged carjackings that have
Mm.
happened. One in Savin Hill, which involved a shooting of a victim who was shot in the abdomen in a broad daylight attack. Very concerning. This was at the end of August, still under investigation. 2 suspects on a moped, essentially a scooter, attacked somebody, which was crazy. And then just this past weekend, there was an alleged carjacking, and I say alleged because all the facts aren't out, but there is quite a bit of evidence in a long police report. A young woman who was accosted when she was parking her car on Shepton Street, which is between Florida and Dorchester Ave, in the Ashmont Adams slash St. Mark's area, and she was accosted at gunpoint. The thieves, 5 young teenagers were involved, allegedly, stole the car, and she had her phone in the car. So that was pretty dumb. The police were able to track that car down, and eventually there was a massive sweep, Erin, that night. It was late night, like 2:45 in the morning when this happened last Saturday, and police ended up detaining and arresting 5 young men, 3 of whom have been charged so far. But it's an ongoing investigation. But that's a pretty serious incident, and 2 carjackings in the last month is something to keep our eyes on.
Yeah, and we've seen carjackings go up across the country, especially in places like DC, where violent crime is actually going down, but carjackings are going up. So I hate to see that trend here.
Yeah, I hope it's not a trend. I wouldn't call it a trend just yet here. But it's got people's attention, and people in Savin Hill in particular from that shooting incident were very up in arms, kind of demanding answers as to what's going on with that investigation. And for good reason. I mean, we have to be vigilant. My counsel, I guess, having done this for 30 years, would be, to stay vigilant. And yes, we have reasons to be hopeful in Boston that our crime numbers are better than other cities, but they're far from perfect. And
Yeah.
it's good news to have new young officers and a diverse class, about more than 30% women in this class, and a lot of intentional recruitment within police families. And it's being reflected in the demographics of this class and the ones that are coming up next as well.
When you say police families, you mean people who have already had police officers in in their actual families?
Yeah, Seth
Oh,
Daniel,
neat.
our news editor, talked to one of they actually, there's a tradition with the police academy when the class graduates and before they start their jobs, they do a run from the police academy to police headquarters. And Seth covered that run, and a lot of neighbors came out along Blue Hill Avenue to cheer this class on. And one of the women that Seth talked to is a police officer, a woman of color, has only been on the police department for 3 or 4 years, but she recruited her younger brother to be part of this class. And she was there holding a sign, a lot of people holding flags and saluting the police officers as they ran by. And so and she told us that's an intentional thing that the commissioner and the mayor have encouraged current police officers, tell the good news about your experience here, get other people like you, other family members even, to consider becoming a cadet. So
Yeah.
that's part of the story.
You almost had me until you said there was a running involved, and now I'm not going to do it.
Are you sure? I don't know. I think you'd be a great cop. You should give it a second. Give it a second thought.
I'll think about it.
There's another
Yeah.
class coming there, and I'll send you the application.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on the crime data, and
Yeah.
thankful for new recruits to help kind of alleviate some of what's going on. But let's talk about White Stadium
Sure.
because that's some exciting news. New funding.
Yeah, that was another page one story for us this week. It happened midweek when we learned from the Boston Legacy Football Club that they've secured the financing, $100 million finance loan from Bank of America that we've been wondering about, and a lot of the media in Boston have been asking about for the last 2 months. It's good news for supporters of the club, great news for obviously the team and Mayor Wu. Politically, it's a sign. It's actually kind of the final piece that was needed to get the stadium built. There was some slowdown in construction even over the summer because this financing piece hadn't been nailed down. The city of Boston wanted this nailed down back earlier in August. The team asked for an extension, which ended on Monday, and on Tuesday they announced that it had been signed, in fact. And what it means is that the contractors can get busier. They obviously have an object of getting this stadium finished in time for it's supposed to be done later in 2026. We'll see. But for sure, it has to be ready for this team to be playing at White Stadium in 2027.
Yeah. Okay.
You know that they're going to do their 2026 season in Foxborough at Gillette. But they expect this place to be open, White Stadium now, to be open in time for the spring 2027 season. And I think that this is the news that everybody was waiting for. There was some skepticism as to whether this would happen or not. And if it didn't happen, it was really going to be a kind of a disaster for The stadium's already torn down and
Right.
midstream. We've been a big political problem for the mayor. And I have to speculate, I don't have solid proof of this, that the timing of this announcement had to do with the outcome of the election. These financing packages, especially $100 million one, takes a long time to put together. So
Yeah.
it's not a snap of the finger deal. But I do think that the rollout and the announcement, one of the things we saw from the mayor's victory was solid support, convincing support in those precincts and wards that surround Franklin Park. And I think that was uh, a real, boost for stadium supporters to see that. And, bank lenders who are putting $100 million on the line would like to see that, has the political support behind it. And it now pretty clearly does.
And the neighborhood is for it because, we talked to Mike Omenazu from Legacy Football Club last season on the podcast, and he was adamant that, there's a lot of loud voices who are against it, but there's a lot more voices who are for it. And they've done a lot of listening and a lot of addressing of concerns. And I think, those neighborhoods would not be on board with Michelle Wu if they didn't feel that the stadium was a benefit to them in general.
I think that that's probably right. I mean, yes, there are some folks who voted for the mayor who probably don't love the stadium. I know that for a fact. But look, this is the one chance we have really in the city to register that vote. And if you feel that strongly, I know some people do against the stadium idea. This was the chance, and it's a victory for the mayor, but it's also, frankly, in my view, a victory for Boston Public School kids who are going to be using this facility. Whatever you feel about the soccer franchise, if it works, if it doesn't work, there's going to be a stadium here that Boston kids are going to use for generations to come, and that's good news.
Absolutely. I'm with you there. In the renovation space, we've got some news from the Epiphany School, Shawmut area development, which probably has about the same percent of supporters and detractors.
Oh man. Yeah, next to White Stadium, this might have been the most contentious debate that we've covered over the last 4 or 5 years. And this is a project called 150 Center Street at Shawmut. It's proposed by Trinity Financial, which is a pretty well-known developer, built the Caruth building, built the Treadmark building, many, many developments across the decades here in Dorchester. And their proposal to build 72 units in a 4-story apartment building right next to Shawmut Station became really a flashpoint for neighbors and really in the development community at large in Boston. It's been held up for the last 2 years by lawsuits from neighbors, including the Epiphany School and others too in the Melville Park and the Shawmut community, who really didn't like this project because of the density. They thought it was too big. They also thought it was too, I guess, intrusive on the school itself. There were a lot of different factors in why people didn't like this. But at the end of the day, it did get approved by city officials. The Wu administration were actually included in the lawsuit because neighbors who didn't like the outcome sued the city along with the developer. But the story this week is that those lawsuits have been withdrawn. They are not advancing. The development team let us know last week that the last of those lawsuits is now over, settled, and so this project will go forward. It's 72 units, all affordable. They'll be built starting next year and probably take about 20 months to complete. And for folks who have been urging what's going on, why aren't we building more units? What's the holdup? Sometimes the holdup is that there's legal wranglings going on. It's certainly been the case for many of the developments in Dorchester over the last couple of years. So again, back to Mayor Wu, she was getting criticized pretty heavily by Josh Kraft for having all these units in the pipeline that haven't been built. Well, some of them aren't getting built because of from lawsuits from neighbors and abutters. In this case, you can put 72 units on the chalkboard for new affordable housing, probably now 2027.
So I don't want to dissuade people from filing lawsuits because if they think they have a reason why a project shouldn't go through, that's their right to do that. But on the other hand, do you have a sense of how much these lawsuits increases the cost of development overall?
Well, it certainly adds to the price tag for the development team here. I don't know the sum that they spent, but the break point in this lawsuit, from what I've been reporting on, Erin, is that in order the plaintiffs did want to continue this. They wanted to continue this fight, but a judge in the matter said, "Look, you've appealed a couple of times. If you're going to appeal again, you got to put up a $1 million bond, basically to protect the defendants from, this extended
Constant.
legal
Yeah.
fight."
Yeah.
So that money figure essentially ended the matter. They elected not to, because both sides were spending money on this. It wasn't one-sided in terms of the spend, but yes, that can add to the cost. Legal adds to the cost, in addition to, tariffs and steel prices and all the other
Labor
attendant.
prices. Yeah.
Yes,
All
and
goes up
so
over time.
all of those have escalated the last several years, and that's another part of the story for a slowdown in residential builds and commercial too. But this is I'm emphasizing the story in part because we've spilled a lot of ink on this one, Erin, over the last 4 or 5 years at the Reporter, the Globe, other news outlets too. It's been kind of a case study in how do you build in an urban neighborhood like ours, where there are reasonable people on both sides of this fight. But at the end of the day, we have to build more housing in our city and in our region. And right next to an MBTA station, just it makes sense to most people, I think. Transit oriented development, reduced parking, people can jump on the T there. That's the plan. This doesn't have, if any, parking, much parking,
Yeah.
and that makes sense next to a red line station, frankly.
But that was a big part of the resistance, I think, was where are these people going to park? We're already full up on the side streets. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully people don't bring cars. If they are across the street from the red line, hopefully they will
Yeah,
do without.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
perfectly located for that, and it looks, I have to say, and I've looked at other buildings that Trinity has developed. I think we've all
Yeah.
been in them. The Caruth building, which is home to Tavolo, along with other businesses along that block of Ashmont, the Treadmark building, Jim Keefe, Patrick Lee, have been developing buildings in our community for 40 years now, and they do have a good track record. This one got pretty contentious, and so both sides, well, especially the Trinity side, said, look, no hard feelings. We just want to get this thing built. We love this community, and I think it's going to take some time, but hopefully, everybody will be friends again soon.
Yeah. A lot of development coming into Dorchester. We shared on our Instagram page this week, the massive development that's coming to Morrissey Boulevard. So we'll talk about that probably closer to, groundbreaking and what that's going to mean. We are actually in active conversation with the MassDOT to talk about Morrissey on the podcast. So hopefully that will be part of that conversation. But it's good to see development. Obviously comes with a grain of salt, but
Yes, for
yeah.
sure, for sure. So yeah, lots to talk about, and next week we're going to be looking, more closely at, we've got several stories go back into District 7, which is another potential recount. We'll be talking more about, the at-large race, some interesting, contests there with the outcome last week's election. So more politics to come, but definitely more development. And one of the things that's out there is the Kearney Hospital site. Be watching for that to come more into focus in the next month or so, I'd say. We're actively doing some reporting on that now, but there's certainly going to be news coming, I would say, this fall, as that comes more into focus, what will replace Kearney Hospital.
Yeah, that sounds good. Did Yahoo decide he's not a podcaster?
Think Yahoo will be back, and
Okay.
he has that was his inaugural Dot Life pod, but he's no stranger to other pods and other media. So we're lucky to have him on the team, and I think you're going to see him. I don't think he's going to want to talk football with you. So sorry to disappoint. We got to find somebody on
We
the
got to
team
get
here.
Cassidy on because she'll talk
Yes,
football.
Cassidy will talk your ear off on sports, and I think that's Cassidy McNeely, one of our staff reporters, and Seth Daniel knows his football, so
Okay. All
back
right.
on too.
We'll get them on as the season deepens. One more thing before we go. I did go to the nightly.
Oh, cool. What
Yeah.
did you think?
I thought it was pretty good. We talked to the chef a little bit and talked to the server about what the plans are in the space. They're still working on it. He does have Anchor Bar buffalo wings on the menu, which I
Ah,
approve of that. That's a Buffalo, institution.
Cool.
It was good. It was a beautiful night. Think there's more to come, but I recommend it. It's
Did you
great
sit
week so far.
outside?
We sat outside until about 10:30, and then it got a little chilly, so we moved inside, and they accommodated that. So yeah, it was good.
Well, thanks for the recommendation. We are going to check it out, and it's always good to have new options in the neighborhood. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
we will see you out there.
Awesome. Well, I will be back in town by the weekend, so hopefully I'll see you, and if not, we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Bill.